David, la question centrale de ce débat, finalement, c'est de dire comment allons-nous nourrir 7 ou 9 millions 9 millions de personnes à l'avenir au niveau planétaire. Une partie de la réponse, c'est on utilise GM and pesticides. Quel est votre avis sur la question? Comment voyez-vous la situation?
GM food and pesticides, some pesticides, will undoubtedly play a role in the transitions from unsustainable agriculture to sustainable agriculture, which we are not going to achieve overnight. But the idea that something that focuses just on food, like GM, and on pesticides, is a solution to the problems we have in agriculture is just too simplistic. They are like single-shot silver bullets, we say in English, dealing with one aspect. Agriculture and farming is a complex system. It delivers a lot of products and services, not just food. It delivers water retention. It delivers soil quality. It provides landscapes for people to enjoy. It creates habitats and ecosystems that allow natural predators and parasites to grow and develop. In other words, it's a system that delivers a lot of products, a lot of services. And in order to do that, we have to address and embrace that diversity by a diversity of approaches to making agriculture sustainable. For example, that will use more bottom-up approaches that are more appropriate to the small farms which dominate the global picture. Most farms are small. Many of them are here in Switzerland and many others are in the rest of the world. And a solution or a suite of solutions that maximizes the use of the knowledge of the farmers, the knowledge they have of the very different agricultural systems and farming systems, the use of agricultural methods that focus on, as I say, not just the food, but on the quality and quantity of the water and the soils and so on. Those sorts of bottom-up knowledge-sharing methods, as opposed to top-down, patent-driven, monopolistic, single-shot solutions, are what the world needs. And that's the conclusion of experts who have studied this, both at international level and at EU level, who have said we should be promoting these more intelligent ways of farming than the rather simplistic ones of just pushing more GM food and pesticides.
J'ai le sentiment que jusqu'à maintenant, les agriculteurs ne se souciaient que de leur production. Aujourd'hui, est-ce qu'il y a une nécessité d'avoir une approche plus globale, puisque l'agriculture, c'est aussi la question de l'eau et la question du climat?
To approach agriculture in an intelligent way means to recognize how complex a system it is and to try and go with the flow of what nature does. Nature has provided grasslands and trees that absorb a lot of CO2, as well as absorbing pollution, as well as helping with water retention, as well as helping develop rich soils. Those are the kinds of things that we should be focusing on, as well as the output of food. And when we look at the research that has been done on these more intelligent, bottom-up, diverse approaches to agriculture, we find that the yields are actually better than the homogeneous one crop, one solution type of agriculture. And they not only produce more food, but they deliver on these other valuable outputs from agriculture to do with the climate, the soil and the water.
Est-ce que vous pensez que ces nouvelles approches sont aujourd'hui les mêmes aux États-Unis qu'en Europe, par exemple?
Well, yes, many places, many European countries like Switzerland, for example, have a great diversity of farming systems to do with the climate and the geography and so on. And they also have very many small farms. So the ways in which we address the agricultural problems of Switzerland do provide us with ideas and solutions and approaches that are readily applicable to the small farms and the diverse situations that we find in the rest of the world. And so more research, more practice, more use of these more intelligent methods here will help us to develop them and provide material that other farmers can learn from in other parts of the world, and the other way around as well. We can learn a lot about how to run a farm with not much money, with very few artificial inputs, but using native intelligence, let's say, from people who know how nature works. In many farms in Europe, we have lost the knowledge of how nature really works. So we can learn from them just as they can learn from us.
Est-ce que vous pensez que être plus petit peut être maintenant plus efficace? alors qu'avant, on pensait qu'il fallait être très grand pour être efficace.
There is a famous book which is called Small is Beautiful, which did inspire a lot of people in the 60s about how to be more intelligent in the way we use nature to meet our needs. And smallness can be a great attribute, particularly because it addresses the diversity of situations. Agricultural situations, ecological situations, biological situations are very different, and so we need different approaches to them. This also helps us more generally, because if we allow one solution to a problem to develop, like asbestos for insulation, lead for petrol, CFCs for aerosols and refrigerants, it means that when a surprise does come along, it's a global problem and we've only got one technology and it's a problem. Whereas if we embrace and promote and develop a diversity of technological means and social means of meeting our needs, then when a surprise does come along with one of them, it'll be smaller scale and we'll still have the other technologies to live by. So it makes sense to have a diversity of options.
Dans ce contexte, on doit maintenant inévitablement aborder la question des experts. Là aussi, les choses sont en train de changer. Finalement, tous ces problèmes ne sont pas que des affaires d'experts.
When we're talking about choosing different innovation pathways to the future, with food or with energy systems, it does seem that maybe just the experts know about this sort of thing, but we have looked historically about what we can learn about innovation. And for example, if you take the lead in petrol decision, it was taken by two brothers and their friend who ran three big companies, GM, DuPont and Standard Oil. And at that time, there was an alternative pathway to the need for better fuel, shall we say, and that was to use alcohol, which at that time was as efficient as lead, didn't have the likely harmful effects that lead has got. We knew lead was damaging from the Roman times, but it was not so profitable for these three people. So those three people decided it's lead, and they put it in petrol. It became a global phenomenon, a global product, and therefore globally damaging, and took about 60, 70 years before we realized that those small amounts of lead in the petrol were damaging the brains of children and reducing their IQ, their intelligence, at great cost to themselves and to societies, because we lost productive, clever people to a large extent from this choice for lead. So these decisions, if they're left to two or three people, powerful people who will gain a lot of profit from one direction, they will block off and not encourage the other direction. And these decisions about technologies, in many cases, determine the kind of the shape and the quality of societies that we want. So clearly, they must be determined by a much broader range of stakeholders and publics who can help to say, for the next 30, 40 years, we want sophisticated, clever, intelligent farming methods and not single-shot GM pesticides. For energy, we want to have a mixture of renewables. We want to have energy efficiency as the means of the way forward, rather than the top-down, terrorist-prone nuclear plants and continuing to use fossil fuels. We know that this climate change is happening. It'll get more serious. We should be leaving the fossil fuels in the ground. And this is not an unintelligent thing. At the height of the first oil crisis, one of the leading Arab negotiators said, you know, we did not leave the Stone Age because we ran out of stones. We just became more intelligent, more smart. Now the problem is climate change. We leave the fossil fuels and go with the flow of renewables coming in every day from the sun, be it tidal or wind or solar, plus energy efficiency methods, rather than sticking with the stocks of fossil fuels. It's an old-fashioned way of meeting our needs.
Mais est-ce que vous nous dites, David, ça ne veut pas dire aussi que les choses doivent évoluer au niveau des leaders, des grands leaders, qu'ils soient politiques, économiques, et que là, l'université, par exemple, doit jouer un rôle déterminant?
Yes, I've got a lot of hope in the younger generations, particularly as they can learn about our past mistakes and hopefully learn from that and not make the same kinds of mistakes. And again, we need a diversity of people in universities and in education who are supported by essentially the taxpayers and the public, far more than currently, where a lot of research is now dominated by short-termist corporate finance, who do not have the wider interests of society at heart. again, looking back in the lead story, those three guys ran the research on lead for about 50 years and closed down the idea of harm or other ways of doing things until some public money came along in the 70s in America and uncovered the link between high levels of lead in the air, in children's bodies, and low levels of intelligence. So we need publicly funded, diverse, intelligent research that will be looking for these new technologies, but also anticipating the likely or the possible or the potential hazards and dealing with them before they become too big.
Merci David, c'était un très grand plaisir que de converser avec vous sur ces questions très sensibles. Merci à vous.
A pleasure.